How's it going, everyone? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, and I am so excited that fans are loving Shang Chi. And if you saw it and you loved it, be sure to let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, or you can tweet at me on Twitter. The movie was fantastic, but that post-credit scene has left people with a lot of questions. And needless to say, this is a breakdown of the post-credit scene, so if you don't want to know anything about it, this is your official spoiler alert, and you should probably click away now. But for those of you who do want spoilers or simply answers, let's dive into it. And of course, if you love Marvel and the MCU, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our latest videos. So the ending of Shang Chi, the very last scene that we see is of Shang Chi and Katie going with Wong. Wong appears, he asks Shang Chi if he has the 10 rings, he says yes, and he tells him and Katie to go with him. Now the first mid-credit scene takes place immediately after this moment right here. We see Wong using his magic to project the 10 rings in front of everybody. This is very similar to what we saw in the beginning of Avengers Infinity War, where Wong used the same type of magic to show and teach Tony Stark and Bruce Banner about the Infinity Stones. Now joining Wong, Shang-Chi, and Katie is Bruce Banner and Captain Marvel. And notice that it is actually Bruce Banner. It is no longer Hulk or Professor Hulk like we saw in Avengers Endgame. Somehow, Banner has turned back into himself in pure human form. How did he do this? Well, he is a genius, so he could have figured it out himself, combined with the Hulk, which was Professor Hulk in Endgame, and it's probably a story that we're going to hear about when the She-Hulk series comes out on Disney+. Now, the fact that Professor Hulk is now just Bruce Banner and Carol Danvers now has long hair, not that short hair that we saw in Endgame, tells us that some time has passed since the events of Avengers Endgame. And they're gathered here via the same projection technology that we saw in Endgame, and they're gathered for a pretty significant reason. They are trying to figure out what exactly the 10 rings are and where they came from. Now, in the movie, they don't actually tell us how Wenwu got the rings, and this is very intentional because they're going to reveal this to us later down the line. He say that maybe he found them or took them from a tomb, but as it turns out, these rings are actually a lot older than Wenwu was. Shang-Chi says that his father had them for about 1,000 years, but then Bruce Banner says that they're older than that by a lot. And that line right there is really important, and I'll come back to that in just a second. So they're trying to figure out where they came from, what they're made out of, and Wong says they don't match anything in their codex. And this is huge because consider the knowledge that the Ancient One had, consider the knowledge that Wong has. All of the books about other realms, about other parts of the universe. They even have knowledge and weapons of cosmic entities. In Doctor Strange, we saw the Staff of the Living Tribunal, a cosmic entity. So the fact that the rings don't match anything that Wong would have access to is big. Bruce Banner then confirms that they're not made out of vibranium, the super rare metal from Wakanda that Captain America's shield is made out of and that Black Panther suit is made out of as well. Captain Marvel confirms that they're not Chitauri tech. Chitauri are some of the creatures that make up Thanos' army that we saw in Avengers and then again in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. So they can't figure out where they're from or what they're made out of, but there is one thing that they did figure out. The rings sent out a beacon the second that Shang-Chi took control over them. So obviously the big question is, who did it send out the beacon to? Well, one thing that you might have noticed about the rings is that the whole entire time when Wenwu uses them, they're blue. However, when Shang-Chi uses them, they're gold. So when Shang-Chi took the rings for the very first time and they became gold instead of blue, this was most likely the beacon being activated. Shang-Chi fought Wenwu, and whenever Wenwu would take the rings, they would turn back blue. So clearly, there is something a little bit different about Shang-Chi than his father Wenwu. Perhaps the rings can sense the character of a person, and perhaps this is somewhat like Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, with its worthiness enchantment. Either way, the rings seem to have a mind of their own, and the second Shang-Chi took the rings, it sent out a beacon. Now, colors actually play a pretty big significance in the MCU, especially when it's concerning the mystic, magical side of the MCU. The mystic arts and normal magic that Doctor Strange and the other sorcerers use are orange. The dark magic that is pulled from the dark realms are typically darker colors like the dark purple we saw Agatha Harkness use in Wandavision. And gold typically is cosmic energy. We haven't really seen this much, but we have seen it recently in the Eternals. In the trailers, we can see a lot of gold magic being used, but of course to them it's almost like science. It's kind of like what Thor said in the very first Thor movie. Where he's from, Asgard, magic and science are pretty much one and the same. So when we're talking about who made these rings, it looks like they could be coming from a cosmic entity. Now, in the comics, the rings are very, very different than what we saw in the movie. For starters, they are actual rings that go on your fingers. And each ring has a different ability. This is not like we saw in the movie. In the movie, they kind of all have the same ability. And in the comics, the rings are McLuhan tech, who are an alien species. Their spacecraft crashes into Earth one day, and then the Mandarin, the character that Wenwu is based off of, steals them from the crash site. Now, I don't think the McLuhans are going to be the actual creators of the rings in the MCU, but I do think the creators are coming from a distant part in space, specifically for two reasons. One is because of what Bruce Banner said. Bruce Banner said that they're older than 1,000 years by a lot. Now, we learned from the Eternals trailer that the Eternals have been on the planet for about 7,000 years, and we can assume that they were pretty much there during the beginning of the Earth's creation. So the rings could have been made well before actual people and civilizations were established on the planet. And since cosmic entities can live thousands and millions of years old, it's definitely possible that one of them created these. So how old they are and the fact that they seem to emit cosmic energy, at least when Shang-Chi is using them, really points to a cosmic being making them. And that wouldn't be the first time that we actually saw this happen in the MCU. Like I mentioned in Doctor Strange, we saw the staff of the Living Tribunal. So weapons created by cosmic entities already exist within the MCU. And it seems very likely, especially since this sent off a beacon, that these were indeed created by some gigantic cosmic god being. Now again, back to the question who, the first time that I saw this, I immediately heard beacon and thought Galactus. Galactus, the devourer of planets, is a cosmic entity, and he does have what's known as the power cosmic. The power cosmic is a vast source of essentially limitless godly power, cosmic power. And according to the Silver Surfer, a herald of Galactus, he says that to wield the power cosmic is to be in touch with every other living thing at once. This could actually be a reason as to why the rings changed colors when Shang-Chi wielded them. Perhaps Galactus was somehow in touch with Shang-Chi and Wenwu. Or perhaps the rings, if they contain any of the similar powers that the power cosmic have, were actually aware as well and sent a beacon. In the comics, as most people know, Galactus has heralds, and their primary job is to go and scope out planets and energy for Galactus to come and devour. And when his heralds get to a planet that is suitable for Galactus, they send out a beacon essentially. This beacon alerts Galactus and it basically says, hey man, I found a good planet for you to munch on. And Galactus actually bestows part of the power cosmic on each of his heralds, and each herald kind of gets different abilities. For example, the Silver Surfer had his board. It is possible that the rings are a product of the power cosmic and they were actually a weapon wielded by a herald of Galactus. If this was the case, it would still wield part of the power cosmic, which would send a beacon back to Galactus. So if this theory turns out to be correct, then the Avengers and essentially a lot of the universe has a big problem because Galactus is coming. But there is another option that I think might actually be more likely. Since Bruce Banner did say they predate 1,000 years by a lot, that could actually line up right with the Eternals being on the Earth for about 7,000 years. Now, the Eternals were created by the cosmic gods, the Celestials. And again, the Celestials and the Eternals all use cosmic energy. It is very clear that some weapons were formed by the Eternals and possibly by the Celestials. And it is also possible that some weapons may have been stolen or misplaced along that 7,000 years, or locked away somewhere in a not so secure location, leading ultimately to Wenwu finding them. And the beacon very well could be a beacon to the Celestials. And this probably isn't good considering the fact that the only Celestials that we've seen in the MCU so far do appear to be evil. We have Ego, Star-Lord's father from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, he wanted to essentially destroy the universe. Then we have Esson the Searcher from the very first Guardians of the Galaxy, we see him destroying a planet. Then we also have Nowhere, the head of a Celestial. Now in the comics, Null is the one that cut off the head of the Celestial, however, Null has a direct relationship with symbiotes and Venom, and I don't think that's going to be in the MCU. So more than likely, another Celestial ended this Celestial's life and cut off its head. So this could be a beacon to one of the Celestials, and if that is the case, that is probably not good. And I think we'll definitely find out a lot more about the Celestials and maybe even a glimpse at what the 10 rings are and where they're from in the Eternals. One thing is for sure, that whoever this beacon is being sent to probably isn't good news for Earth, Shang-Chi, and the Avengers. And the final part of this mid-credit scene is of Wong, Shang-Chi, and Katie partying, singing Hotel California, which is the song that Katie used to distract one of the ninjas, I'll call them, when they were fighting in that scaffolding scene. But then we get the post-credit scene, which is about Xiling. Now at the end of Shang-Chi, Shang-Chi says that his sister is dismantling what is left of the 10 rings. However, However, the post-credit scene shows us otherwise. His sister Xylene is actually now in charge of the 10 rings, and we can see two familiar faces beside her, John, which helped her run her little fight club in Macau, and Razor Fist, her father's right-hand man for a little while. Xylene says that they have a lot of work to do, and then the camera expands and we see that she has actually expanded the 10 rings as well. She now not only has an army of males but also females, and this of course is due to the fact that her father never let her, because she was a girl, train with the boys. But now the empire is hers and she's going to do it her way. Now, will Xylene actually be very bad? We're not really sure at this point. I think it might be one of those things where she has to do bad to do good. Kind of like, yeah, I have to kill a bunch of people, but these people are kind of bad, so it's alright. However, it does seem like she's pretty bitter, having gone through what she's gone through in life, and it definitely seems like she does have some sort of an agenda, and this is also proven by the very last thing that says the 10 rings will return. And those are the two post-credit scenes for Shang-Chi. Be sure to let me know what you thought about Shang-Chi in the comments down below. And of course, for more Shang-Chi videos and Marvel videos, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.